All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today on this lovely Thursday morning. Today we're going to talk about, how Pipefy is going to be able to assist within your loan origination process. To give you a little bit of background on myself, my name is Mike Hinton. I'm an account executive here at Pipefy. So really what I do here within the company is having these types of conversations with different companies to understand what sort of gaps they might have and really understanding whether or not Pipefy is going to be that organization or that solution that's really going to fill those gaps and improve on your daily lives within your work. So what we plan on covering here today is, first of all, giving you an understanding of who Pipefy is, what we're doing, how we're fitting, giving you a little bit of understanding of what we're seeing in terms of problems within a loan origination process. And then from there, giving you an understanding or giving you a demo of Pipefy. And at the end, we can wrap up with some Q&A. Now, before we really get things kicked off, I think it's important to understand, as an individual, you are involved in processes every single day, whether you're in sales, finance, whatever it is, you are involved in a process, whether you are kicking work off, whether you are, assigned to do certain tasks or certain approvals, you are involved within a process. And so Pipefy itself is a no-code process orchestration platform and is giving the citizen developer today the ability to automate different workflows to manage your specific business processes. And if you're not familiar with what a citizen developer is, a citizen developer is essentially somebody that is, very tech savvy, but maybe isn't necessarily code savvy. But what this individual is able to do is actually build out different applications within their organization to streamline different processes or streamline different work without writing any sort of code. Now, I bring this up because what's important to understand is there's a lot of research out there being done today that is saying that in the next 3 to 4 years, the amount of applications that are being brought on board for an organization that are the low code or no code applications are going to be around 70%. So these citizen developers are the individuals within your organization that are really going to be driving the efficiency and driving you towards your goals as an organization as a whole. And so when Pipefy is actually talking to prospects or talking to clients, and we're looking at their tech stack and really trying to understand where we fit, we see these different applications fall into really 3 different verticals. First of all, you have the backbone of your organization. So that's your ERPs, your CRMs, your HRIS. These are typically augmented by some sort of vertical application. And then you essentially have everything else. And so this is where actually a lot of your work is being done today. So these are things like your email, your Slack, your Microsoft Teams. And so the challenge with all of this work being done in these different applications is the fact that you have a very hard time understanding where you are within a particular process. You don't necessarily have an understanding with respect to SLAs or due dates. And so with that in mind, there's a lot of talk around the amount of time wasted within an organization due to bad processes. And the root cause for a lot of this bad process is the fact that a lot of applications today aren't able to communicate with one another. And so what's happening now is all of these different teams or all of these different employees are now tasked to actually go out and fill these gaps. And so what Pipefy is actually able to do is come in and be that connective tissue for these different applications. So we're giving you the ability to now see where things are within a process. We're giving you the bird's eye view to maybe understand where things are potentially at a bottleneck, what processes are working well, what potentially isn't working well. When you're actually looking at the application itself as Pipefy, it's broken into really 3 different categories. It's work that's coming in, the work that's actually being done, and then you have some sort of output. And so the way that Pipefy is capturing work is through a number of different ways. It can be pulling any type of information through an API call. So whether that's your CRM pulling information, it could be your HRIS, whatever that application is, we can pull that information into Pipefy. We can also upload information through our mobile app that we've created. We can scrub emails with our OCR technology, and then we can do uploads of any sort of Excel files that you might have. And what we're trying to do with this input of information is put it into a structured format for your work. And when I talk about structured formats, what we have is cards. So we're taking all this information and putting it into a format where you understand exactly what you have and ensuring that the information that you have is going to help you get through your entire process. And so when you actually move into the process with Pipefy, what you see here is a Kanban view. It can be a list view, it can be a calendar view, whatever is going to be most applicable to you and your team. But essentially, the idea is not to have somebody in here moving cards from left to right. The intent of this is to have everything run on an automation rule. So, you know, in the event that this task is completed, there's going to be some new action that is going to be required that's automatically going to be assigned to an individual or group of people within an organization or externally. One thing to note about these cards, when you start talking about tracking and understanding where things are in a process, you do have an audit log within these cards. And so you can see who's working on what, when was that work being completed. And so again, you're getting a good understanding of where you are within a particular process. But as you complete your process, you're given some sort of deliverable. That can be structured data, that can be some sort of report. But what's important to know about that deliverable is it can now be pushed to any type of application that you might have within your organization. And the way that we're able to do that is Pipefy has over 500 native integrations, you know, within its platform itself. So what that means is that you are now eliminating some of that human element error. You're going to ensure that all the information that you have within your applications are up to date. And again, it's just saving you time to where you're not having to actually go in and manually update that information. And so what are we typically seeing within a loan origination process in terms of issues? You know, first and foremost, it's collecting that necessary information to make sure that the process is actually able to run, right? To make sure that you're able to actually go in and create this process. And then from there, also going back to the fact that your applications aren't able to communicate, the idea of having to go in and manually enter that information is extremely challenging and extremely time consuming. And then I think one of the most important things that we're seeing today is that the borrower experience isn't always necessarily the best because we are maybe lacking that information, because we are maybe having a hard time getting information into a particular system. The borrower or organization, whatever it might be, is now on the back end not exactly sure where we are within a process, trying to understand when they can expect these funds to come in. And so it's becoming more and more challenging for them to have a good experience. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is hop into the actual demonstration of the product. So as I do so, what you see here is the dashboards. And I think what's important is, you know, I will obviously go through an entire workflow here today, but I think the important part to understand, or the important place to start is really where organizations tend to have the most issue. And that is understanding where things are within a process, or just having an understanding of where you know, a process might be struggling. So here in the dashboard view, you can have a complete overview of your process, of your organization. You have the ability to do different drill downs. It's all very usable, all very customizable. That's the one thing about having a no-code application, is all very customizable. And I'll show you that, you know, as we move forward throughout this process. And before we really start talking about the actual work that is happening, what I think is also important within Pipefy, because we have over 3,000 different customers in over 150 different countries, we have access to a lot of processes that are out there today, whether they're good or bad. We have seen them all. So what we have done is gone in and created a template gallery. And I think there's two values to this particular instance, one of which it can be a jumping off point if you are in an instance and you're not exactly sure where to get things started. Rather than starting from scratch, you can come in here and get a good idea of where you might want to start. On the other hand, if you're working within a particular process and maybe something isn't working as well as you would like it to, you can come into the template gallery and look at the different templates that we have and use it almost as an audit to say, hey, maybe I'm doing something inefficiently, and this might be a better option for me, just to evaluate whether it's information, structure, whatever it might be. Just know that this sort of crutch is here for you within the platform itself. Now, I am a huge Vikings football fan, and so I always like to make this a little bit personalized towards football because football season's coming up. So what you see here is a form, and this is really where work is getting kicked off. Everything you see here can be completely configured or completely customized to match your business. This can be internal facing, this can be external facing. This type of information that you see input here can be pulled directly from a different application that you might have. So essentially, when we're talking about some of the issues that we've seen in terms of data collection, you can require different fields within this form. So that eliminates some of that issue that you're going back and forth, maybe with the client saying, hey, we see that you didn't input, whatever it might be, a specific financial, maybe social security card, whatever that is. But you can include the required fields here. And as you go forward, you can include any type of information. So it can be attachments, it can be dates, it can be phone numbers. But once you actually submit this application, what's now happening is that you move into Pipefy. And before I actually do that, when you submit something in terms of a request, as the individual that's submitting the request, this person or this group now has the ability to actually communicate with the individuals working on their request. So you can see what information has been included. You can see where your ticket is or where your request is within the process. And if you have questions, you can now communicate directly with that individual that's working on the process. And this is important because this can be internal or external. And so once you're actually in the platform itself, you can move into the card. And so again, all of the information that you have included in the initial request is going to be housed here on the left-hand side, and all of your action items are going to be here on the right-hand side. What you see on the right-hand side is that Steve Jobs has automatically been assigned to this particular request because the amount that has been requested is over $1,000. So this is where the automation rules start to kick in, and this is really where you start to see the value in Pipefy being brought to light. Also, you can include different types of priority. We'll say this is high priority because the Vikings just got a brand new quarterback. He's going to be second string, but that's okay. I think he's going to be just fine. And then as you go forward within this process, you can start to see different pieces of material, different ways that Pipefy is now streamlining your process. So here you can see that the social security number has already been transcribed through the OCR technology. See, the social security is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You see it here. And very similar for the address has already been transcribed as well. So again, taking away some of that human error that might be happening is being done already within Pipefy itself. You can come in here, say this contract is approved. You can create any sort of interest. We'll just say 5% interest for simplicity's sake. And on the back end of Pipefy, we're now calculating the interest that it's going to be. Eventually it shows up, I promise. There it is. So now you see that on our back end, we're now doing calculations for you, and we can automatically send this contract. When you click this send this contract, you can close out of the card, and you've seen that the card is automatically being moved to the send contract phase. Within the send contract phase, again, going back to the customer experience, what's happened now is that the customer will receive a text message saying, "Hi there, I hope everything is okay. Your request was approved and the contract for signature is in your email." So I don't know if you can see it, but it allows you to now help this individual be part of the process and know that there's now actions for them to take. So if you come into your email as the requester, you can see that all of this information that has been input into Pipefy has now been included here on the sample contract. So you can finish this, sign it, adopt and sign, and we finish. Thank you. And so what's happening now on the back end is that you see here that the contract is now officially signed and completed. We are in the process of uploading this document into your Google Drive. This is, in this particular instance, is Google Drive, but if you have any sort of document repository that you have within your organization, you can have this integrated into that so it can file the document where it needs to go. So it's, again, making sure all the information is where it needs to be. The data entry is now streamlined. Everything is set up for, you know, your success and working as efficiently as possible. And so before I wrap up and kind of open up the floor for questions, I think it's important to understand how easy it is to actually customize Pipefy as a whole. So when you're looking at Pipefy and you see all of these different fields here, you can simply customize this by doing a drag and drop, adding different pieces of information. And so as you go forward, you know, you don't have to be coding on the back end to make your changes. You can be running a process for some time, feel as though you could do this potentially better or need to change any sort of fields that need to be included. You can do this here within the settings format, and allows you to really start to customize this and not necessarily have to lean on IT as heavily, given that the IT resources today are obviously stretched extremely thin. And before I open up to questions, I always think it's important to show how easy creating automations are as well. So when you come into our automations option, the way that this is working is on the left-hand side here, you are choosing some sort of task that is going to be completed, whether it's when a card enters a phase, when a card leaves a phase, when a field is updated. Any one of these actions is going to trigger a new action on the other side in terms of an automation. So let's say, for example, that when a card enters a phase, you want to send a particular email. And so you can create email templates that allows you to send emails automatically, whether that's internally or externally. And it, again, starts to open up that communication for different stakeholders and allows you to just work in a more streamlined and efficient manner. Now, with that being said, you know, I think it's important to understand that Pipefy has, you know, a lot of flexibility when it comes to working within an organization. In this particular instance, we spoke specifically to, you know, loan origination, but, you know, as you can see here, there's a lot of different, there's a lot of ways to apply Pipefy given its flexibility, given its ease of use. So, you know, I think with that, I'm open to answering any questions that somebody might have. So yeah, I guess I can turn it over to you. No questions? Well, all right then. Well, if there aren't any questions, 1 second here. Do you have? So if there aren't any questions, I guess we can wrap up a little bit early, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending this morning. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And yeah, thank you again for attending, and I look forward to giving some demos in the event that you're interested.